जिंदा खुदा से दिल जो लगाते तो खूब था।
जिंदा खुदा से दिल जो लगाते तो खूब था।
मुर्दा बुतों से जान, मुर्दा बुतों से जान छुड़ाते तो खूब था।
Right, I think let's begin. Can I request Sapahat Aman Ahmed for lead out, please?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. The translation of the verses recited before you is as follows. I seek refuge with Allah from Satan the accursed. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, ever merciful. O ye who believe, fasting is prescribed for you as it was prescribed for those before you, so that you may become righteous. Jazakallah.
Okay, Jazakallah. And well, it's a short verse, but the point was that fasting has happened before us, and that's what's the topic of today's program. That fasting in different religions. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. So, but I put it there. So, as we said, pointed out, it's for those who, for before you. Right. So, while the month of Ramadan is known around the world to Muslims and non-Muslims alike as a month of fasting, there are several other religions that practice fasting as well on various religious occasions. Today, I'm going to talk about 6 religions other than Islam and what is required from their followers with the fast that they do. So the first one is Judaism. In Judaism, they have a day called Yom Kippur. So a day in Judaism seems similar to that of Islam, of Yom and Yom. And so the Day of Atonement, it means. And it is the best known fast day. The Jewish calendar has 6 other fast days as well, including, I don't know how to pronounce this, Tish B'Av, the day in which the destruction of the Jewish temple took place. Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, is the holiest day of the year in Judaism. Its central themes are atonement and repentance. Jews traditionally observe this holy day with a day-long fast and intensive prayer, often spending most of the day in synagogue services. The fast during the day, they abstain from eating, drinking, and even brushing their teeth or using perfumes. They can eat until sunset, then they fast for 25 hours and then break the fast just after sunset the following day. So they start just before and then they finish just after, and that makes it 25 hours. Concerning the fast, they always wear white and they don't wear makeup, perfume, or leather shoes. The most important part of Yom Kippur is the time spent in the synagogue. Even Jews who do not go to the synagogue very much will still go when it's the day of Yom Kippur. The day is spent in continuous prayer. Now, the Jewish tradition recognizes that fasting is not a safe practice for all Jews. Children under the age of 13 and individuals who are pregnant or ill are not required to fast on this day. In fact, people who are pregnant or nursing are exempt from fasting lest it would harm them or harm the baby. Those who are ill or have chronic medical conditions should talk to the doctor before fasting to make sure it is safe, and any medications you take daily should also be taken on Yom Kippur. So whereas in Islamic fast, if you're taking medicine, you don't fast, there you can take medicine and still continue with the fast. But the main thing is that fasting is not supposed to endanger your life or your health. For those who are unable to fast during Yom Kippur, they can meditate instead. If you become ill or dizzy, you can break the fast and you don't have to make it up again. So again, whereas in Islam you have to make it up, there you don't. Yom Kippur is a day to reflect on the past year and ask God's forgiveness for any sins. Jews do not work or go to school on this day. Yom Kippur is 10 days after Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, which celebrates the anniversary of the creation of the world. Yom Kippur will be celebrated in the evening of Wednesday, the 15th of September this year, 2021. Now, the 10 days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are called the days of repentance and the days of awe. During these days, the Jews think about everything they've done in the past year. If they've done something wrong, they can try to put it right, ask God's forgiveness, and promise not to do it again. The Jews also give money to charity. Right, so now we'll move on to the next one, which is Buddhism. Now, all the main sects of Buddhism, and of course, like all religions, there are many, many different sects, but all the main sects practice some periods of fasting, usually on the full moon days and other holidays. In Buddhism, there are a variety of attitudes towards different forms of fasting. It is recognized as one of the methods for practicing self-control. So this is the main reason why they do the fasting, to develop that self-control. Now, the Buddha is known to have practiced extreme forms of fasting, which led to his emancipation and to have famously abandoned it before his great awakening. Now, you can see in the picture here of a statue how thin it's portraying him to be. And he went to extreme fasts. So the different forms of fasting are practiced in various Buddhist traditions. The Buddha advised monks not to take solid meal after noon. The lay people, which means that those are not monks or priests or anything like this, who observe the 8 precepts, which is abstaining from killing, stealing, sexual activity, telling lies, intoxicating drinks and drugs, eating after noon, entertainment and beautifying the body, and using luxurious furniture on full moon days. Also abstain from taking any solid food after noon to the dawn the following day. Fasting refers to abstaining from all or certain types of food and drink. However, as with the exclusion of meat and alcohol, not all Buddhists or lay followers of the religion fast. Some Buddhists may fast or refrain from consuming animals, alcohol, and certain vegetables. Traditionally, the Buddhist monks follow, here I've tried to put some of the words that they use, the Paratimuksa rules outlined in the various Vinayas. The text outline the monastic monastic discipline, all which specify that one must not eat after the noon meal. Buddhist texts mention that this is a period which they should be used for meditation or sutra chanting. Breaking this rule is considered a bhaksetika offense which needs to be confessed. This is not considered a kind of fasting, but a simple and moderate way of eating, which is said to aid one's meditation and health. Devout lay persons should also follow this rule during special days of religious observance. Okay, so now we'll move on to Catholicism. Now, of course, we've talked a bit about this before, so I'm not going to go too much into depth on this one. But anyway, just to go through it again. The Catholic Church historically observed the disciplines of fasting and abstinence at various times each year. For Catholics, fasting is the reduction of one's intake of food, while abstinence refers to refraining from something which is good and not inherently sinful, such as meat. The Catholic Church teaches that all people are obliged by God to perform some penitence for their sins, and that these acts of penitence are both personal and corporal. Bodily fasting is meaningless unless it is joined with a spiritual avoidance of sin. The early Christians' form is known as the Black Fast. Eating once a day towards evening, nothing else except a little water was taken all day. This was the normal way of Christian fasting prior to the 8th century AD, and is still kept by some of the faithful to this day, especially during the Lent. There has always been a close connection between fasting and almsgiving, giving money. The money saved on food should be given to the poor. Catholics fast on Ash Wednesday and Good Friday. They also abstain from meat on all Fridays in Lent. In the present time, in the early 20th century, church law prescribed fasting throughout Lent, with abstinence only on Friday and Saturday. The rules of abstinence generally only allow seafood. Everyone from the age of 14 to the age of 60 is bound by law to fast on Ash Wednesday and Good Friday. So generally on Fridays they have fish, and it's known as Fish Friday. Catholics may eat only one full meal during the day. Additionally, they may have two smaller meals, which is known as collations. Church requirements on fasting only relate to solid food, not to drink. So church law does not restrict the amount of water or other beverages, even alcoholic drinks, which can be consumed. Right, so now we move to the Protestants, the Christians that are not Catholics. Now, because fasting is a private matter, this is how they look at it, so many Protestants don't actually fast at all. For those that do, fasting is practiced at any time and in a variety of ways. Standard fasting is going without food, but still drinking water, often for a 24-hour period. Some denominations also encourage fasting every Sunday. Now, members of the Latter-day Saint movement, which is known as the Mormons, they fast on the first Sunday of every month. On this day, all members are encouraged to fast for 24 hours from dinner on Saturday night to dinner on Sunday. They go without food and drink for 2 consecutive meals. On Fast Sunday, each family makes a contribution of money to the poor called fast offering, which are at least equal to, if not more, than the amount they would have spent on food had they not been fasting. These offerings are used by the Mormon Church to give support to the poor. The Mormon Church has a highly organized welfare program for this purpose. Thus, the rich are humbled and the poor elevated, and all benefit together. Mormons accompany their prayers with a fast when they are in need of something or they have a righteous desire. The fast is preceded, accompanied, and followed by prayer. Without prayer, the fast doesn't have much, if any, spiritual value. Mormons believe that fasting and prayer together make them more receptive to God's influence and helps them to focus on spiritual things. Okay, so I mainly focus on the Mormons because, as I said, most of the other Christians don't really fast. They may occasionally, but they don't really. It's not a practice within their church. Right, so let's move on to Hinduism. Fasting in Hinduism is a method to attain control over one's desires and senses for the sake of spiritual gain. Doing it for a cause has always strengthened people's mind to attain their goals. It has been scientifically proven that fasting makes the mind calm and serene. So it's not really a form of worship, it's more to control yourself, control your desires, is why they do fasting. In the yogic terminology, this is known as sattvic element, because the mind becomes predominant sattvic, and more receptive. The scriptures advise the worship of certain deities during these fasting periods. This is called vrat, a special type of purifying self-discipline or tapa. Different rituals, fasting rituals in Hinduism. So a common fasting ritual may mean avoidance of food like fish or meat for a couple of days for non-vegetarians. Most Hindus abstain from eating such foods for for 1 or more days. Moderate fasting involves avoiding solids and following a liquid diet consisting of vegetable or fruit juices. This fasting ritual is generally followed during festivals. Some follow a strict fasting ritual by taking only water or avoiding any liquids for a set number of days. Different kinds of fasting in Hinduism. So the Hindu fast on certain days of the month, such as Purnima, a full moon, and Ekadasi, the 11th day of the fortnight. Certain days of the week is also marked for fasting, depending on individual choices and on one's favorite god, because they have many different idols and gods. So this is why they have different forms of fasting. According to according to ancient Hinduism tradition, one should fast once a week while remaining empty stomach till afternoon. One is allowed to drink water until that time. In the afternoon, one should have some fruit juice or 1 or 2 fruits. One should break the fast in the evening after sunset. The timing for the fast is from sunrise to sunset, or else 12 o'clock a.m. to 12 o'clock the following day, 12 o'clock a.m. Otherwise, 24 hours. While breaking the fast, you should eat some rice first. Eating non-vegetarian food is not allowed on the day of fasting. Right, so now we move to Baha'ism. Baha'u'llah designated a 19th day period each year during which adult Baha'is fast from sunrise to sunset each day. Now, I don't know if you know much about Baha'ism, but basically Baha'u'llah had this fascination of 19, and this is why he changed the Holy Quran to introduce 19% for zakat, 19-day period fasting, 19-day month, and so on and so forth. This period coincides with the Baha'i month of Allah, meaning loftiness, from 2nd to 20th of March, which immediately precedes the Baha'i New Year. So this is 1 month, and they have 19 months in the year. Of course, if you add it up, there's a few extra days, but anyway, basically that's what they go after. It is a time of prayer, meditation, and spiritual rejuvenation. A number of special prayers has been revealed, especially for the period of the fast. Practice fasting as a discipline for the soul. They see abstaining from food as an outer symbol of the spiritual fast. Abstaining from food is not an end in itself, but a symbol. And if it doesn't result in improvements in character and concern for others, then it's not being undertaken in the right spirit. So again, although Baha'ism is coming from Islam, the main purpose is not in itself the worship of God. Baha'is should keep the fast from the age of maturity, which is 15. After the age of 70, they do not need to fast. No food and drink may be taken between sunrise and sunset. You are not allowed to smoke while fasting, and those who are ill should not fast, nor those who do heavy manual work. Right, so that was the 6 main religions. Now, what about the other religions? So in Zoroastrianism, fasting has been implicitly rejected throughout the faith's history. In Sikhism, although Sikhism again has come from Hinduism and Islam, but it does not promote fasting except for medical reasons. In Taoism, there is no fasting, but minimal eating practices can be great for improving one's health. Okay, so that is the talk for today, and now we'll open it up for any questions or any comments that anyone would like to talk about, even this fast or even our own fast. If there's any questions you want to ask about the Islamic fast, we'll take that as well.
I think there's a question on the chat. I'll try to read it. I think someone's also got their hand up. If
Right.
the person who's got their hand up, if you'd like to, I'm guessing it's Toby Sab. Toby Sab, would you like to unmute yourself?
Assalamu alaikum, Rob Sab.
Welcome, Salam.
Yes, sir, I was muted. Jazakallah, I'm Rob Sab, and Jazakallah for a very great presentation. May Allah bless you. Just a very quick one I've got about 2 questions. One I was asked by one of the children I was teaching, but for the benefit of myself, of course, and the others. First question is, why do we fast? That was asked. And the question number 2 is, how can we answer the allegation that Islam was copied from the old religion? So question number 2 is, how can we answer the allegation that most of Islamic practices like fasting and zakah, it was taken from the old religion? And the third question, Rabbi Saab, is that in your presentation, you did mention that when the Buddhists are fasting, they abstain from killing. But we witnessed that 3 days ago, a Buddhist monk, he chopped up his head. How can we encounter this, and how can we explain this? Jazakallah.
Okay, you may have to remind me the questions again, but let's go to the first one. So the first one, of course, the Holy Quran is very clear. The whole purpose of Islamic fast is to purify ourselves, to become more righteous. And so for Islam, it is very much about you and God. And so the giving up the food and drink is just a minor part. It's the developing of purifying ourselves to please God. And that's the real reason that we fast. The second one about the different religions, why so similar to Islam. We've mentioned this before, but anyway, basically, it's the same God. So if we believe that there's only one God, and that one God has created every mankind, all mankind and everyone, and has given religion to different people, are we then thinking that he's going to give one message to one people and another message to another people and another message to another people? What would be the point of that? So of course, it is all the same message. And that basic message is to worship the one God and to follow his commandments. Fasting and obviously paying zakat, as you mentioned. These are types of fasting, types of the commandments which God gives. Man, in his wonderful wisdom, he has chopped and changed the religion. And that's why when we look at religions today, they seem so different. But this is what we always say, go back to the prophet. And if you look at the prophet, then he will give that true message. So for instance, we just mentioned Buddhists, we'll come on to that. But if we look at Buddhists, as I mentioned, he did extreme fasting. And we believe that also the Buddha, he believed in God. There is some evidence to show that he believed in God. Although present day Buddhism, they either believe that he is God himself or he's an atheist. But Buddha himself in his teachings said that if you want to find God, go to someone who knows God. I know God, so follow me. Jesus, again, we know, although he's representing Christianity, but he's come from Judaism. And of course, again, he talked about the one God, and this is Jewish belief. So although Christianity now has moved away from that and even taken him as a God or a son of God, Jesus himself taught a different story. So this is the thing, that if we look at the prophets and what they taught, then you see that same basic message throughout. And so this, of course, is why all the religions are similar. Now we believe that we've come to a time where God has brought all these religions together. And this is what God wants now, that because man has developed, and so communication, transport has greatly improved, so there's a need of just one religion. And so Islam is a fulfillment of all the previous messages. And God wants everyone now to follow Islam. So, of course, if it's very similar in the previous religions, because they are all meant to be leading mankind to God. The third question, you said a Buddhist got chopped, a Buddhist monk chopped someone's head off. Is that what's correct? Yeah. I don't know if they are fasting at the moment, so I don't know if it's got connection with fasting. But generally, Buddhism teaches that obviously it's all about development of yourself. And again, we can see in Jesus in India, a lot of the Buddhist teaching, and it's very similar to Jesus, it's all about love and not chopping people's head off. So I have no idea what happened here. I don't know. It's the first time I've heard of this incident that you're mentioning. But this is not what, again, the religion practices. So there may be some other reason why that happened, but I don't think it should have been for the religion. You can fill me in because I say I haven't read the story, so I don't know much about what you're relating to. But that shouldn't have anything to do with fasting, and it shouldn't really have anything to do with the religion. Okay, so anybody else got anything, or do you want to add to that, Toby, or you're happy with that?
We do have some questions on the chat, but if someone would please, would like to unmute yourself and would like to ask a question in person, then please go ahead. We can come back to the questions on the chat as well.
Well, I think give one question for now, and if anybody wants to ask a question, then of course they're most welcome.
Okay, so one of the questions is it's been sent is that what age should we encourage? What age should we encourage someone to start fasting?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's good to start off at a young age. I mean, to say to a child that once they reach maturity, right now you fast for a whole month, that's going to be very difficult. So, like with my children, for instance, we started them on, first of all, I think it was a chocolate fast, that they shouldn't have any chocolate for the day and things like that. And then slowly, it was something like having no snacks and things like that between one meal and another meal, and then finally stopping one meal, then maybe two meals, and then if they wanted to fast, they started fasting. They were competing against each other, so they actually started fasting quite early. But the main idea is that before you reach the age where you've got to fast, it's good to have some sort of practice beforehand and not just go straight into it. It's the same with a new convert. We don't expect a new convert to do the whole month. If they do, then alhamdulillah. But it's not expected because it takes time to gradually develop and get used to the idea. So it's up to the children and the parents. But of course, we don't encourage any child to do the proper month of Ramadan. They're still developing, and it's important that they develop. So that can medically say that it can help, it can stunt the growth and things like that. But to get into some practice and have, children like to be mimicking the elders. So to help them get some of the blessings, yes, of course, doing a little bit of a fast, there's no harm in that. Okay. Any other questions someone wants to ask, or shall we have another question from the chat? Okay, I think ask another question from the chat, please.
Yes, sorry, I think I just got muted again. Yeah, so one of the questions and the comment, it says mental health seems to dig deep in the society. How can fasting be answered to mental health?
Yes, I mean, again, I think it is important. I mean, because you're developing your relationship with God. And one of the problems with mental health is that you think you're alone. You don't think there's anybody to help you. And so to have God there and build up that relationship with God, to have that, development with God, that I think helps greatly, so that you don't have these problems with mental health. Um, of course, if a person is ill, they don't fast, and that can mental illness can also be an illness to stop people from fasting, depending on what it is. But I mean, this is the main thing that we should be striving to please God and develop the relationship with God. So this month is God's month. Uh, this is what God says, that the rest of the 11 months they are for us, but this month is for God. And this month we should be devoting our time trying to build up that relationship with God, more fasting, more reading the Holy Quran, fasting, and things like that. And that I think is very important with, like I say, mental health. That people, if they know that there's God there and they are building up that relationship with God, hopefully that will give them more peace within themselves and be able to cope, putting their lights on God. Although they're facing many problems, God, if they know that God is there helping them, that hopefully will help them to overcome or get better with their mental health. So, yeah, I think it is a very good way to help people with mental health problems.
We do have a few more uh, questions on the chat. I'll
Okay.
just read out another one then.
People don't want to talk today, they want to chat.
Yeah,
That's fine. We'll
I
have a
think
wait, no
everyone's
problem.
hungry, so they just keep them reserved.
All
Okay,
right.
so another one is, what would you say to people, the to the influencers who only fast for the views on social media?
So I'm not understanding. Say that
It
again.
basically says that, what could we say to the people who just fast for the show of it, and they're
Oh,
basically putting it on social media, different platforms?
Charles, that was happening. That's the wonder of social media these days. Yeah, I think people do their blogs and their diaries and whatnot. So maybe they are. Of course, the Holy Prophet Muhammad is very, very clear that if a person is going about food and drink, but they don't stop the other bad habits, then they're just starving themselves for no reason. So the whole purpose of fasting is to purify yourself and not for show. So if this is why you're doing it, just like those people that go for Hajj, so they can call themselves Hajjis and put it on their shops and stuff like this, then this is not the pilgrimage. So the fast is a very beautiful way to develop self-control, to develop your relationship with God, and to improve both physically and mentally. But if you're just doing it for show, are you going to take it seriously? And more than likely, you're going to be doing some wrong things as well, because we see this quite often that people sometimes they smoke or they do bad things, and then they come and do the iftar in front of people and say, yes, yes, I've been fasting. So they're only fooling themselves. So I wouldn't suggest that this should be done. Um, you should be boasting about fasting unless you're doing it properly. If you're doing it properly, then of course to encourage other people, if that's the purpose of doing it, then there's no harm. But if it's just to promote yourself, then no, this is not pleasing to God, and so we should not do that sort of thing. But first time I've heard that particular question, so that's an interesting one. So any other questions?
There isn't any other questions. Rabbi Sab, I had a question which I wanted to ask, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, I've seen that during Ramadan, it's a great opportunity and a great chance, for us as Muslims to do tabligh. And every year, whenever Ramadan comes, I'm able to explain to people, about fasting, and that I'm fasting today, and they ask a lot of questions as well. What can we, what kind of, what how can we basically, or what should we, when explaining to them about Ramadan, what should we tell them basically to do, tabligh as well, and explain to them, um, the reason for Ramadan and so on.
As you say, it is a good method of doing tabligh, and often, you just say to someone that, look, I'm fasting, or sometimes maybe if you have a meal with someone, you say, I don't eat pork, then that leads to other questions, and people start asking you that, oh, why don't you eat pork, or why don't you drink, or why don't you fasting, why are you doing it? And so, like you say, then you've got a very good opportunity to explain about the fasting, and then you've opened up the door. So then you can start talking about other things, because now you brought the subject onto religion. So it's a very good thing. I often actually ask other people that why don't they try fasting just for one day or so, just to have an idea what we're going through, or just trying it, a little bit of it. And again, there's no harm, and a lot of people want to try it just to see. So, of course, at the moment we've got this tabligh thing, the big iftar, where they again are encouraging people to fast. So that's one way. Of course, the problem these days is that it's a very long fast. As you know, you're starting very early, finishing very late. So for a non-Muslim, they may find it difficult. But like you say, it is a good way. It's often when we're doing tabligh, we're thinking in our minds how to bring it onto religion. And like you say, this naturally brings it onto religion. So you just, by mentioning that you're fasting, then that normally would make the person want to know more. Once they've started down that avenue, then of course you can start explaining about many other things about Islam, and hopefully you can have a very good conversation. So this is what I often find, that sometimes I'm in a group and I'm thinking, how can I bring the topic onto religion? And something like fasting or something like that is a way to talk about this. So um, yes, it's a very good way. And again, just asking people, do they fast, and what type of fast they do. I've given you some ideas of how different people fast. So this also is a way, because whenever we are doing tabligh, don't keep just doing the talking. Ask them, pose them questions as well. Show an interest in what they're doing, and then they feel more comfortable to continue to talk. So you can ask them that, do you fast? And if they say yes, and then what kind of fast? How do you do it? And then again, you can talk about the differences, and that, oh, well, this is what we do, and so on and so forth. Not in a boasting way, but just, an interesting way of explaining about how we fast and how other people fast. So yes, it can be a good method for, I've always found a good method for doing tabligh. And yes, we should be trying to do tabligh all the time. So this is a good time. And I'll be pleased to you, of course.
Jazakallah. So there's a question on the chat. Says that Allah says in the Holy Quran that fasting is for Him and all other deeds is for Him,
Mm.
Himself. Sorry. Please, can you comment on this?
Right. Well, as I've said, this particular month, we should be doing it for Allah's sake. So this is what Allah's saying, that during this 1 month, this is Allah's month. And we should be focusing all the time on Allah. Of course, we should be doing this anyway. But in this month, it's there to help us to develop good habits. And so it's not just about going without food and drink. That develops self-control. And for me, for instance, obviously, when I started fasting before I became Muslim, but it helped me to give up drink. It helped me to give up smoking and things like that, because I found that I was now in control. I decided what to do, what not to do. So this is one of the beauties of fasting, that it helps you to develop that self-control. And so that should then filter through on many other things. But then, of course, we should be getting into the blessed habit of doing more prayers, not just the 5 daily prayers, getting up for the Tahajjud prayer, Tarawih prayer, doing more Nafil prayers, coming to the mosque for prayers. And the main thing is that in this 1 month where you're doing so much more, then continue it afterwards. This is what Allah wants. So although He's saying you've got this 1 month, He wants to see you then continue this. You've got into this habit, continue it throughout the year until the next Ramadan, and then that again gives you that spiritual help to get the back into the way again. So again, we know that during this month, reading the Holy Quran. Of course, we should try to finish reading the whole of the Holy Quran once, at least once. Some people are very quick; they can do more than that. But of course, the beauty of it is that with the Tarawih prayer, the whole purpose of the Tarawih prayer is actually to go through the Holy Quran. So in Pakistan and places like that, they will get Hafiz who recite the whole of the Holy Quran in the Tarawih prayer. Then, of course, the das, which there's many das these days. But again, in Pakistan, they will have an hour-long das. And the idea is that you go through one power. And so each day you finish one power and you finish the Holy Quran. So in this way, there are actually at least 3 ways where you can complete the whole of the Holy Quran. And then, of course, afterwards, maybe not reading the whole of the Holy Quran every month, but getting into that habit of reading. So that should continue. So this is why it's Allah's month, to help develop us. Allah doesn't get benefit from it. Allah wants the whole idea of worshipping Allah is not for his benefit, it's for our benefit. And so by fasting in this month and doing everything which is connected with the fast, that will help us more purify, get more purer, and then hopefully continue those good habits throughout the rest of the year. This is what Allah wants to see, and that's why this is his month, to help us to develop our worship. Okay, Toby, you've got your hand up again. You want to ask something else?
Yes, but I think we have a guest from by the name of Hawa Fast. Maybe you can give her a chance, because I can see the organizer there saying the time's up, but I'll put in my question. She says, first of all, that what does the significance of the gates of Jannah opened and the gates of hell opened? But that's the question in the chat first, then I can put mine, please.
Right. I mean, it's not literal gates, of course, but what it's saying is that there are many ways which you can attain paradise. And so fasting is one of those paths, one of those avenues that through fasting you can attain paradise. And of course, we say that during this month, Shaitan is chained, he's locked up. And what that means is that, again, you are focusing on God all the time. And so obviously trying to please God means that you're going to keep away from doing wrong things. And so Shaitan's defeated. Shaitan wants you to do wrong things. He doesn't want you to do pure good things. And so during this month, again, it helps us to overcome Shaitan and stop any evil. And again, the idea is to then continue that throughout the rest of the year. So this is what these gates are being mentioned as, not literally that they are gates, but it's a path, a means to how to attain paradise. And so fasting is an excellent way to develop your relationship with God. And as I said, not just giving up food and drink, but all the other things that go with it. And because, again, you're purifying yourself, keeping away from doing anything evil, anything wrong, any bad language, any bad speech, then again, that is cutting out Shaitan and helping you to attain paradise. So this is basically what it means, that when we fast, it's not just giving up food and drink. That's a very small part of the fast. But the real thing is, as we said right at the beginning, is to purify yourself, to become more righteous. And that, if you attain that, then of course you attain paradise. That's the whole purpose of trying to have this world do the worship, of trying to attain that nearness to God. Right, Toby, you said you've got another question, and
yes.
you have to be watching time, but yes, go ahead.
Okay. Jazakallah Murabisab, and I think we have another question from Shasha. She gonna ask her question. Shasha, you don't need to put the camera on, but you can just ask your question. But a quick one while Shasha, are you ready? Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Welcome, sir.
No, sorry, I forgot.
Okay, no problem. Just put it in chat if you wish, and we'll try and answer it.
Cool. Rabbi Sab, while we are waiting for Shasha and the organizer, they're telling us time is up. Of course,
I
it's
think he's getting hungry, that's why.
it's a challenge we have, Rabbi Sab, and these days it's not about the young people or the poor, but I will speak on the side of the young Muslim youth, where we see that the rise of drugs, they smoke weed and a lot of dealings in weed. What advice would you give to the young people, please?
I mean, as we said, this is a way of controlling yourself. And I'm surprised sometimes when I see people who smoke, that they go the whole day without smoking. And then as soon as they've finished, then they light up and have a cigarette again. And I'm thinking, well, you've gone the whole day without smoking. That should now help you to keep away from smokes and things like this. So again, with drugs and other things like this, the main thing is that you're in control. But once you start doing these sorts of things, drugs, alcohol, things like that, you start losing control. And so this again is the beauty of the fast. It helps you, like I say, to overcome these things. And of course, it's difficult, no doubt. But inshallah, once you've learned how to control yourself, that gives you that goal. Now, again, because we're doing it for Allah's sake, when you've got now focusing that I want to do it for God's sake, then you've got a purpose. Now, I've already related that before I became a Muslim, I used to smoke. And I tried a number of times to give up cigarettes, and I couldn't do it. But once I started learning, doing fasting and developing a relationship with God, now I had a goal, a purpose to do it, not for me, but to do it for God. And I found it very easy to give up. I gave up straight away. So this is the problem. Now, with someone who's got taking drugs, of course, coming off that is very, very difficult. But if you're doing it for God's sake and putting your reliance on God, inshallah, that will help you again to have that inner strength to overcome these feelings, and you can then hopefully give up the drugs and things like that. As for selling drugs and things like this, of course, again, in this month, we should be, again, thinking about God and trying to do things for God. So we shouldn't be doing any bad things at all. So if anybody's doing that, then again, this should be in this month telling them not to do it. And once they don't do it in this month, hopefully then again, they get into that habit and stop it completely. They should be doing it anyway. So has that answered it? I'm not sure if I've answered your question. Hopefully I have.
Yeah, I think Tobi's got a thumb up, so I'm guessing yes.
Okay.
Yes, there isn't any further questions in the chat at the moment.
Okay, so I know you're keen to have some food soon. I don't know what time you're breaking in Midlands.
I think it's 17 past or 18 past, somewhere around that. That's all.
All right, you're pretty close to us, and it's not much difference. So we still got time if you want, or do you want to stop it there?
I think because there's no other question, unless anyone would like to, unmute.
Assalamualaikum, Zaid. A very quick one. I think I got a question from Shasha. She says, when you are fasting and you intentionally smoke or something does, it break your fast straight away, or can you still fast? I hope I've read it well.
Okay, from what I understood, if you're fasting, you can't smoke. So no, if you do that, you break it. If it's done, everything in Islam is done not by the action, but the intention by the action. So let's say, for instance, that you're a smoker and you forget that you're fasting. And same with food. Sometimes you start eating food and you forget that you're fasting. So then, because your intention was not to do it on purpose, it was an accident. So in that case, as soon as you realize that you're fasting, then stop and you continue to fast. So same with smoking. If you light up forgetting that you're fasting, then as soon as you realize that you're smoking, then stop, then you can continue to fast. But if you lit up knowing that you're fasting, or if you eat food knowing that you're fasting, or you drink knowing that you're fasting, then that breaks the fast. I hope that's how I explained it. Okay. Anything else, or shall we finish it?
I think we can finish it.
Okay. So, I mean, obviously, we're trying to think of topics relating to fasting during this blessed month. So if anybody's got any topics they want to talk about, hopefully fasting, then please let Toby or Zaid know, and we'll try and do such a topic. Otherwise, Zaid, anything else, or shall I do silent prayer?
I think that should be all, Mubzab. If you lead us in silent prayer, please.
Right, okay. So please join me in
I
silent
have
prayer.
one more question, if that's
All right,
okay.
yes. Yeah, go ahead.
When you're cooking and like you want to taste the soup, are you allowed to taste it then spit it out?
Yeah, I always feel for the ladies that are cooking food and the smells and things like that. It's very, very hard. Those people working in restaurants, again, I feel for them. Very, very difficult. You're allowed to taste the food because obviously you've got to see whether the food is correct or not. But again, it shouldn't be because you're hungry. The idea should be only to know about the taste of the food. So if that's the intention, as I said, it's all about intention. If your intention is just to know if the food is correct or there's too much spice or curry or salt or whatever, then that's allowed, but not to have food, obviously. So it's only to taste it, just to see that it is developing correctly. So I hope that's answered your question. But like I say, I always feel for those who have to cook and the smells are there. But anyway, Allah blesses you for that because they know, Allah knows that the temptation is there and you're overcoming that temptation by cooking food. So you get more reward. So alhamdulillah. Okay, so if that's it, we're finished with silent prayer. Yes? Okay, so please join me in silent prayer. Bismillah. Ameen. Okay, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.